Hello everyone, and welcome to The Outside World, the channel that dares to explore the world's most uncomfortable and fascinating truths. Today, we delve into a story that challenges everything you think you know about Afghanistan, a tale of heartbreaking contradictions, extreme survival, and the fight for human dignity in the most unthinkable circumstances. Prepare for a journey that will open your eyes and your hearts. The veil of contradiction, but let's stop for a moment and think about this. Desire isn't a choice. It's an instinct as fundamental as hunger or thirst. And when 95% of the population lives in extreme poverty, can you even imagine what people are forced to do to survive? I saw it with my own eyes. It wasn't something I just heard about. In the bustling but discreet border town of Mashhad, an Afghan woman approached me, a child at her side. That not only shocked me, it haunted me. And in the city of Yazd, deep inside Iran, and seemingly far removed from all the chaos, around 80% of black market activity from prostitution and illegal currency exchange to motorcycle gangs involves Afghans. Sending them away would be seen as a betrayal of Islamic values. But keeping them created instability for the government. The old saying, "It's easy to invite a god, but difficult to dismiss him," had never been truer. Then, in 2001, the United States intervened and overthrew the Taliban. Iran seized the opportunity and, over the next 20 years, quietly forced the deportation of 5 million refugees. But it wasn't that simple. Many Afghans already had children and grandchildren living into their third generation on Iranian soil. Even after the expulsions, by 2020, 3 million still remained. And then history repeated itself. In 2021, the United States withdrew. The Taliban returned. A new wave of fear erupted, especially among those who had experienced it before. Those with money fled west, to Europe, to the United States. But the poor turned once again to the west, to Iran. In 2023, official figures show that 5 million Afghan refugees were living in Iran. But during our field trip in 2025, local Iranians told us the true number could be as high as 10 million. Let me emphasize this. Iran's current population is around 90 million, and Afghans today make up more than a tenth of that population. Notably, 45% of them are women, many of whom are war orphans, without parents or a support network. They have no work permits, only temporary AMCA cards, which are not enough to get a proper job. So how did they survive? No money, no husband, no job? That question doesn't need an immediate answer. But keep it in mind, because what comes next is the most chilling and heartbreaking part of this whole story. That woman was Pashtun, one of Afghanistan's main ethnic groups. The story you're about to hear isn't just about sex. It's about poverty, desperation, and survival. At first, it may seem suspicious, even sensational, but the more you look at it, the more you'll realize it's a real human tragedy. Still with me? Leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Who knows, maybe we're even in the same city. And trust me, there's still so much more to this story that will surprise you. In the lowest strata of society, women without money, without power, without a future, often have no choice but to sell their bodies. The laws are strict. Yes, they exist on paper. But an empty stomach and a starving child don't listen to laws. But why would a conservative Islamic nation like Iran become this destination? The story begins in 1979, when two major events occurred almost simultaneously. In the east, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, forcing 6 million people to flee their homeland. Meanwhile, in Iran, the Islamic Revolution overthrew the Pahlavi dynasty. The new government, led by Ayatollah Khomeini, came to power with a call for Islamic unity. As a result, 3 million Afghans were quickly welcomed in Iran. But that was just the beginning. In 1989, when the Soviet Union withdrew, Afghanistan quickly descended into chaos. Armed factions turned on each other. Then, in 1994, the Taliban emerged, not only seizing territory, but also brutally persecuting Shia Muslims, especially the Hazara ethnic group. And just like that, another wave of migration reached Iran. At that point, the Tehran government once again raised the banner of the Muslim Brotherhood. By 1996, the number of Afghan refugees in Iran had surpassed 5 million. The rules exist, but in practice, there are real people fighting for every breath. There's a saying that goes, the stricter the policy from above, the more creative the response from below. The more restrictions there are, the more people find ways to circumvent them. And in the shadow of these taboos, a very particular sex industry has taken shape in Afghanistan. Not one that serves the country itself, but one that exports abroad. Sounds strange, right? But it's the harsh truth. Can you believe it? In a country where women are forbidden to go to school, work, or even show their faces in public, there is an underground sex industry, and it not only operates in the shadows, but even exports its services abroad. This is Afghanistan under the Taliban regime. At first glance, it seems crazy, a blatant contradiction. But behind the facade of a tough and devout society lies a tragic and extremely complex reality. When poverty and tyranny push people to the brink, the unthinkable becomes real. In this video, we're going to explore a very different side of Afghanistan. Not just a land of war and terrorism, but a heartbreaking story of human dignity, survival, and a desire forced to transcend national borders. The desperate choice, instinct versus law. Islamic law in Afghanistan is so strict that prostitution carries the death penalty. The clandestine business and the border, even when two Afghans want to reach an agreement, they have to cross the border in secret, often into neighboring countries like Iran, to do so. The Afghan exodus. Refugees in Iran. When it comes to the country that imports the most sexual services from Afghanistan, there's no place more prominent than Iran. The burden of hospitality and the return of the Taliban. But that's when Iran started to worry. Its population composition was changing too rapidly. Sending them away would be seen as a betrayal of Islamic values, but keeping them created instability for the government. The old saying, "It's easy to invite a god, but difficult to dismiss him," had never been truer. Then, in 2001, the United States intervened and overthrew the Taliban. Iran seized the opportunity, and over the next 20 years, quietly forced the deportation of 5 million refugees. But it wasn't that simple. Many Afghans already had children and grandchildren living into their third generation on Iranian soil. Even after the expulsions, by 2020, 3 million still remained. And then history repeated itself. In 2021, the United States withdrew. The Taliban returned. A new wave of fear erupted, especially among those who had experienced it before. Those with money fled west, to Europe, to the United States. But the poor turned once again to the west, to Iran. In 2023, official figures showed that 5 million Afghan refugees were living in Iran. But during our field trip in 2025, local Iranians told us the true number could be as high as 10 million. Let me emphasize this. Iran's current population is around 90 million, and Afghans today make up more than a tenth of that population. Notably, 45% of them are women, many of whom are war orphans, without parents or a support network. They have no work permits, only temporary AMCA cards, which are not enough to get a proper job. So how did they survive? No money, no husband, no job. That question doesn't need an immediate answer. But keep it in mind, because what comes next is the most chilling and heartbreaking part of this whole story. Iran contradictions and economic collapse. A country once famous for its Persian poetry and art is now crumbling under the weight of years of economic sanctions. Since 2018, when the Trump administration withdrew from the nuclear deal, the Iranian rial has lost value by a factor of 15. In 2015, 500,000 rials could get you $27. By 2025, that same amount will be worth just $1. It's a heartbreaking decline for an entire nation. This is a country where prostitution is strictly prohibited by law. In Iran, which also follows Islamic law, prostitution does not carry the death penalty as it does in Afghanistan. It is punishable by fines or lashes. Right in the heart of Tehran, there were clandestine brothels where Afghan girls were imprisoned and forced into prostitution. These girls, young, innocent, and full of hope, were lured with promises that seemed like dreams. Marriage, resettlement, aid, or simply a stable job. But as soon as they crossed the border, those promises vanished. Prostitution here is clearly the wealthy northern districts catered to the luxury market, with prices ranging from $300 to over $1,000 per session. On the Afghan side, traffickers whispered stories of a better future. On the Iranian side, agents waited to process their documents and travel. It's about the tragedy of people marginalized in society, especially women. If you found this story interesting, please like it and share it so more people can learn about these hidden corners that few dare to talk about. And do you forget to subscribe to our channel to continue joining us on journeys that reveal hidden truths. Because only when the truth is seen does hope have a chance to shine. See you in the next video. And then, just after they crossed the border, their passports were confiscated. Without explanation, without turning back. These girls are sold in clandestine brothels as commodities. Just like in the industrial crime zones of northern one gesture can cost a girl her entire future. The organization Women of Iran for Freedom has raised its voice. They have sounded the alarm. But even today, and I want to emphasize this, even today this network continues to operate. The real question is this a problem unique to Iran? Or is Afghanistan actually the first link in a chain of crimes disguised as beautiful dreams? However, Iran has a legal loophole. Temporary marriage, a short-term union that can last from 1 day to 10 years. It is recognized by Shia. The other is a central faction, Tehran, the command center. Let's start with Mashhad. At first glance, Mashhad is a holy city for Shia Muslims, home to the shrine of Imam Ali Reza, but located right on the border with Afghanistan. It has become a center for cross-border sex trafficking, a chaotic scene where drugs, crime, and human bodies mix. A group of Afghan women formed the Black Veil Alliance, posing as pilgrims while secretly performing sex work. serving both Taliban soldiers and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. It seems incredible, but the Taliban's own restrictions have forced their fighters to cross the border in search of fellow Afghans, discreetly and safely. Ironically, the risks are often greater for the clients than for the women. If discovered, the sex workers could be killed, but the soldiers risk losing not only their ranks, but also their lives. No one believes the black-clad sisters can move between the two countries without protection. Suspicions of infiltrators within the Taliban have made the network even more complex. The Mashhad model has quietly spread to other border cities like Zahedan, thanks to its mobility and ability to remain hidden. But they remain satellites because, in the end, all roads lead to Tehran. In reality, this is a way of legalizing non-committal relationships, a practice that dates back to the Safavid era and was once a pleasure for the nobility. However, to legalize it, a certificate from a cleric is required, something that ordinary people rarely have access to. Most of these marriages today are simply a front for a clandestine brothel on the outskirts of Tehran, which operates in secret and opens at 2:08 a.m. With unlit shuttle cars, clients directly select the girls, usually 2 Afghans and 1 Iranian, for a price of $150. Foreigners can only access the service if they have an Iranian sponsor. Fake clerics are often behind these operations, while the women trapped in them are those with nowhere else to turn. Everyone knows this reality, but no one speaks out. In fact, Afghan woman has even become a vulgar insult, reflecting the growing stigma and cruelty pervading society. So when the world labels Afghanistan as a sex-exporting nation, do they truly understand that many of these women didn't choose this path, but were forced to follow it? When poverty, prejudice, and complex political dynamics push a person to the limit, do we still have the right to judge? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. In this climate, the average monthly income in Iran has fallen to less than $150. Iranians themselves cannot find stable jobs. So what hope is there for undocumented and non-citizen Afghan refugees? Afghan men can survive by performing forced labor, but for women, there are almost no options other than temporary domestic work. In the city of Yazd, for example, one household hired 3 Afghan women as domestic workers. When asked why he employed so many, the homeowner responded candidly, "Because it's cheap. Each woman is paid only $70 for a full month's work. That's less than $3 a day. A wage that is not only painfully low, but often entails exploitation and even harassment." But does poverty leave room for choice? Temporary marriage, an exploited legal loophole, and when poverty has erased all boundaries, many Afghan women find themselves with no choice but to sell their body. The chain of interests, transnational human trafficking. In 2020, BBC Persian published an investigation that shocked many. 2 models of Afghan prostitution, Mashhad and Tehran. There are 2 main types of sex work operations in Iran. One is the border faction represented by Tehran, Iran's capital, is also the red light district of the Middle East, the epicenter of a clandestine sex industry with a surprisingly professional structure, concerns for human dignity and human rights. These women, some as young as 18, some already married, some even minors, have no choice, no health insurance, no dignity, no protection. Some become tragically ill. Experts estimate that the HIV infection rate among Afghan sex workers in Iran is around 8%. That's 80 times higher than the national average of 0.1%. Some ask, why do Afghan women choose to sell their bodies? But how many stop to ask, do they have a choice? War has devastated their country to its roots, forcing millions into exile. The Taliban have closed all school doors, blocked all job opportunities, and left women clinging to men like shadows. Was that what they wanted? These women, too, once dreamed of working with their own hands, of living with dignity. But poverty, hunger, the most brutal kind, push them into darkness. And when they have nothing left to hold on to, the only thing they can rely on to survive is their own bodies. I still vividly remember the image of the Afghan girls, ragged, dirty, silently reaching out to beg for food in Yazd's city square. Iran has a population of 90 million, and more than 10 million are Afghan refugees. These people, like kites with broken strings, float in a foreign land, hoping to one day return home. They are so honest, so humble, and I can't help but wonder, could that little Afghan girl beg for food? Is she still somewhere in Iran today? And what awaits her in the days to come? Thank you for watching this video until the end. The story of Afghanistan isn't just about war or religion. It's about the tragedy of people marginalized in society, especially women. If you found this story interesting, please like it and share it, so more people can learn about these hidden corners that few dare to talk about. And do you forget to subscribe to our channel to continue joining us on journeys that reveal hidden truths. Because only when the truth is seen does hope have a chance to shine. See you in the next video.